Hi learners, welcome back to the Learn and Grow educational series in our Food for Thought program. And today I'm going to do a little something a little bit different. And we're going to do an arts and crafts project to decorate our self-watering containers. And so I've been looking at a lot of stuff on YouTube, got sucked down the rabbit hole of all of the acrylic pour art and all of the lacing and patterns and things you can do with acrylic paints, and I'm like, hey, now that could be something to do to dress up a bucket that maybe you got from a restaurant that was donated used that would have otherwise gone on a landfill to make your self-watering container, and maybe it's not so pretty, and so maybe that doesn't make your patio look that great when you got a bunch of buckets sitting out there. So now granted, once your plants start growing and all the leaves and everything take over, then the buckets aren't really all that noticeable, but you know, especially in the springtime when everything's new and little and things are kind of bare and naked, to be able to have a pretty looking container until it all comes in is kind of important for a lot of people. And so I'm going to do this arts and crafts project, and we're going to see if I can't do acrylic pour art on a self-watering container bucket, and let's see what comes of it. Okay, in true YouTube arts and crafts video fashion, I'm going to be focusing on the camera on what I'm doing rather than on me per se. And so what I've got here is, right now, this is a bottle of nail polish that I had inside. And the only reason I got that out is because I don't have any glue off, and I've got to get this sticker off of here. So that's my first task to get done. Once I do that, then I've got this wet, dry sanding stuff, and it's 3000 grit, which is super, super fine for doing things that are you know, the polishing stages of stuff. But here's the deal. This paint's not going to automatically stick to this smooth plastic. And I don't want the plastic so roughed up that it's noticeable and that it's got a texture to it. But if I sand it with this super fine grit paper, that's going to create enough grooves in here for the paint to grab on and cling to it. So then that's my theory anyway, and that's what my research has told me will work. And then I got these paints, and because I've never done this before and I don't want to deal with trying to mix chemicals and figure all of that out, I do know I need a base color of either black or white to start it all out. Since it's a white bucket, I just went with white paint. So I got extra of that to do the base. And then I got these guys to do the pours. And so we'll see what comes of that. And then everybody's, you know, firing, get the lacing and the patterns and the cells. They pop the bubbles with a blowtorch. So I got a inexpensive little blowtorch. And then once it's all said and done, I'll be clear coating it so that it the paint doesn't come back off. And it is, I mean, acrylic paint is basically plastic, so it's going to be plastic on plastic on plastic, but it's to preserve the exterior of it once it's been painted. And then I got these at the grocery store because what I intend to do is pour around the sides. But if I pour up here, it's just going to pool on the top and then that's just like a waste of paint. There's no reason to paint the underside of this. So what I'm going to do is take a paper plate and cut it down until it's just this size, so that when I pour, it's going to go out and over and down the sides. And I may have to put something down here to catch the spillage that catches in this bit. But again, once I turn it up right, how much am I going to care? So I may just, you know, shine it. I don't know. I will speed things up YouTube style to get through the how-tos of all of this as I'm going through it. And I may actually use some of this sandpaper just to get this label off of it. It'll work with this nail polish remover. So all of these need a good shake. I'm sure I haven't decided what order I want to go in, but watching what everybody else was doing with their pour stuff. Oh, I don't have to, there's no little doodads in there. Cool, I don't have to pull anything off. It's just ready to go. Stoked. Alright. I'm feeling I'm about to wreck this towel. So, let's get all of the other bits and bobs off of here, away from where we're doing this part of it, so that we don't have drippage. I'm using my bags of potting soil to hold the tarp down, and doing this outside because outside. Alright, let's just see what happens. Here we go. A big O pool of this white. So, okay, feeling better about that. So, let's get paint going to the sides. And I see bubbles in here that I'm probably going to have to burst. I probably need more of this stuff now that I've got the path started for everything to roll around. And I knew I was going to get this on myself, so it is what it is. Okay, so that's got stuff pouring down this way. Come on now. Get you guys all touching each other. Yeah, we knew this towel was a goner. Okay, so now let's do some cool stuff and see what happens. So I'm going to start with the black. And then I'm going to do the pink. Oh, this is already making cool things happen, guys. Do the blue. And do the green. Close these up. Now let's see what we get. Remember, we don't want this stuff staying on the top because the top is just to get it all started. We want everything flowing down the sides. So this is all about getting color to go down the sides of this thing. So we're going to get this part of it started. So that this stuff starts running down the sides, and then we can just start doing things like this. Okay, we'll use some green over here because I lost my green. So here's what I'm going to do now because, oops, because we want these sides to be interesting. It's not really about the bottom of the bucket, it's about the sides. So we've got to and some of this stuff is really pretty. And we can just do things like this too to get the colors to, oh hey now, I think I'm onto something, y'all. See, this is where people talk about mud where it all gets swirled together. Get this just running over the sides and see what happens. Okay guys, I want to show you up close with the benefit of natural lighting, if I can, what's going on here with this pour art that I did on this bucket to try and decorate it so that it's not so plain. And so you should have seen the pouring part previously, but I want to show you the up close of these patterns that came out. And on this one, this was my first attempt at doing this kind of craft. What, guys, really? We have the crew over here interjecting. But I've never done this before, where you kind of pour things and then do all kinds of stuff. And you look at those patterns. Oh my God, that's so cool when you get all close up on it and look at it. That what I did with this, because I got the paint a little bit muddy and the colors got buried under the black and it turned things kind of gray, is I used a balloon to basically, it's called balloon kissing, to blot the wet paint and then pull it away slowly, and in doing that it would pull some of the colors forward. So like right there you can see the pinks that are just kind of peeping through from underneath everything else. And if you get right up on it, it's got a very marbled effect so that you can see, you know, all these little bits of color just kind of ever so gently peeping through. I dig that a lot. And that, I dig that a lot too. I mean, you do have to get up close to it. And here, that was me testing how dry the paint was. So now I've got a little curly Q in there, which not happy about that staying the way that it is. But this is the first attempt, and so this is all like an experiment. So nonetheless, if you look at these patterns up close, like that blue thing right there beneath the curly Q, that's so cool. And the green above it, and then you come up here and here's like this little rainbow bit with these flares of blue, and there's a rainbow bit there. Oh, stop that. You know, and the colors blend, and like the blue and the green comes together right there and makes like a whole new blue-green kind of shade. And then, oh my goodness, just this right here, all these greens all swirlied and the pinks all swirlied in there. Just so cool. Such a cool, interesting way to decorate something. You know, and again, this was like first attempt. Like I've never done this before, ever. I'm just like so digging on that right there. That I think is so cool. Just these colors, when you get all up into it and see the patterns. Just so wicked awesome. Anyway, so there's that one. Okay guys, so here's my second attempt, and in doing this one, I think I did a better job with the blowtorch of popping bubbles and things, because I did get some lacing. I mean, it's very tiny and minor, but I did get some that you can see that's really cool. But I mean, look at the patterns that emerged in this second attempt at pouring, and I didn't blot it or anything. I mean, I just, you know, left it alone, basically. Tried not to mess with it too much. I mean, you can see I did some messing around with it with my finger once the paint started to set up, trying to cover some bare spots. But even still, I mean, it made some cool things happen. And, you know, for this to have been an experimental thing to get these cool, awesome, trippy patterns. So everything is still drying. It's not dry enough yet. I mean, oh my gosh, check that out. Come on, zoom in on that. There we go. That's so cool. That is so cool. Get that out of the way so the sunlight can hit it, and you can see just these details when you get all up into it, and just how awesome it is how these colors, when you pour them on top of each other, and like here I did some, move my finger through it a little bit to see if I could get some patterns going, and you can see how all these different colors blended together in there. You know, and you got cool patterns from the drips from under the rim, because what I did was, like if you were looking before, was I would pour from the bottom with the bucket upside down and let the paint run down the sides towards the rim, and then it all collected in the rim, and then I would turn it over. Like here's some really cool lacing. But then I would turn it over and then let it drip back down towards the bottom again, which created all new patterns. And so, like you can see, that was a drip when it was coming from the bottom towards the top, but then I turned it over and stuff started to drip back down again. But you can see these little peeps of places where it was going one direction versus the other. Just so cool. So cool, so cool, so cool. So I'm gonna let these finish drying. That's like, I think, my favorite part on this one. Just that bit right there. But I'm gonna let this finish drying, and then I'll put a spray clear coat on it so that the paint doesn't get damaged and it stays put. Okay guys, so these buckets that I've done my acrylic pour art experiment on to make them more colorful and interesting than a plain old white bucket, and to show that, you know, you can take something like if you get a recycled bucket from a restaurant, for example, and make it look different or interesting, that it can be done. And so this was a first attempt. It's not like I have any experience doing pour art prior to these buckets. But for a first attempt, I'm not disappointed. You know, this is purely an experiment. So now I just need to clear coat everything. So I'm going to do that next. Okay guys, so here's what I'm going to use to clear coat these things. I'm going to use this sealer finisher. And this is a gloss, so it should be shiny when I'm done. Okay, so these bad guys are sprayed down. We're going to let that dry and see what happens. Hey guys, while we're waiting for these other two buckets to dry, I did want to show you another bucket decorating idea that I tried and attempted, and it seems to be working pretty well. This is contact paper, and I got it on Amazon in this roll. I'll include links. But this seems to be this was actually pretty easy. But what I do have to say, let me take the GroBucket kit out of here. This is my demo unit for when I go teach. Oh, right there, in the middle of this little decoration, I poked the drain hole for inside of this, you know, when the GroBucket kit is inside of it. So, It's another way of concealing it, although if water dribbles out at some point once it's planted, I'm sure it'll make a spot. But you can see I also had to do up on the bottom. So what happened was, if you look at this, there's like 3 rows of these squares that it basically takes to cover from top to bottom like this. And so what I did was I cut off this lower row on these pieces that I used here. And what I did was, because this is a curved surface and it's wider at the top than it is at the bottom, what I had to do was cut it into strips. So what you can see is that these strips that are 2 squares wide and 3 squares long are what I did along and around the whole bucket. You know, 2 by 3 around, and then when I got to the end of the line, this last one right here is just 1 square by 3 squares to close the gap between these 2 places right here. And then, as you can see, the underside, what happened was I had all these bunched up crinkled edges around the bottom of this from where I tucked it in, because it's narrower at the bottom than it is at the top. But then I had all the cutoffs, the excess pieces that I had left over, that 1 square wide strip, because this is actually the roll is 4 squares across, but we only needed the 3, and so I had cut that extra row off, and so this was all the leftover bits. And so what I did was I cut it into, because they were only 1 square wide, I cut them into 2 square long pieces, and then crisscrossed them like an asterisk on the top. And then these edges, as you can see right here, seals down the crinkled up bit that folded over the edge and had to be tucked in and bunched to make it conform to the shape of the bucket. See, like here's an edge right here, and it's not perfect, but you know, moosh it a little bit. But yeah, and so this is pretty well sealed, and it wasn't like the bottom so much needed to be sealed for the bucket's sake, so much as just to finish these edges so they weren't sticking out and dirt getting caught on it when you invert it like this, and have it sitting on the ground or something. And so just to keep it from peeling back up, if nothing else. So then go ahead and stick our GroBucket kit in here, and there's that weep hole. And just position this like this so that the front of the GroBucket kit is above that weep hole. Otherwise, if you have it any positioned any other way, the dirt that goes around the sides of the bucket and the GroBucket kit, down in this space, that's where the dirt goes down. If you have the weep hole along any of this part of it, then it's just gonna have dirt's gonna obstruct it, and it'll get clogged. So you want to have the front of the GroBucket kit in front of the weep hole like that. And then just take this off and put the little doodah down in here. What are you guys doing? I hear our owl. We have a great horned owl mating pair here on the property. Mama's nearby. She's got a deep voice. She's big. She looks like a little man. Alrighty, so there's that. It's all put together. Okay guys, it's super windy, so I'm going to be doing a lot of this just as a photo essay for the remainder of this, because the wind is just nuts, and trying to video with the sound and everything is kind of hard. But what I'm doing right now is this bucket. You can see right here the orange one in the center. This is one of the original containers that I started back in 2013. And it is shot. It's no longer wicking water upward, and I can't refill it through the tube, so I think something's broken on the inside. And I mean, it's almost 10 years old, so it's like 9-ish, and so it's due to be replaced. And so I figured the atrium drain and the PVC are probably fine, but I have replacements for both or either if they're not. And so I'm just going to create another DIY version and recycle the bits and pieces, including the soil that's in this container. And then I'll have it to plant something new in shortly. So just watch the little photos that are going to follow, and you can see the progress of how this all comes together. Okay guys, we dumped out this container here, and here you can see the atrium drain is still perfectly intact. It had a little earthworm on it a second ago. There he is, a little earthworm. So we're going to clean this up, loosen up the soil because it's gotten very compacted. And thankfully it's got earthworms in it, obviously, so it's still healthy. So we'll get this all done up in the new container. See what's up with this one, that it would... Oh, well, these are just stuck together, and God only knows. This just is... Yeah, there's a lot of solid material down in the reservoir. It's probably why it was having such a hard time draining before, or wicking up and being able to refill from the tube. But that's okay. We're going to start all over again in this new one, and it's going to be all pretty. Okay, there she is in her new spot. And inside of there, let's see if there's a better way to see this and do it like this looking down. There's a little tiny basil and a couple of corns that have been transplanted that had gotten started in seedling starters. And now they're ready to go into a container. So now that this beautiful thing is all dialed in, we're all good to go. But coming down this way, you can really see the patterns and stuff. So that's really cool. Yay!